Hello, lovelies. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And I haven't done anything to talk about. Oh, wait. I am sorry for not posting the last, week. I forgot my computer at my house, and I went somewhere. I was not home for a week. My computer is how I, read the stories, because I record on my phone. Yeah, sorry. Much love. And yes, if I sound like someone ran over my throat at all during this, my voice cracks, it's because I was sick yesterday. Love the vibes. Anyways, you guys enjoy this chapter of I'll Be On You, so I'm Miss King Bean. And yeah! Chapter 37, second year, exams. May 1973. Exam season began at the worst possible time for Ramus. Around mid-May, right when the full moon was due. The moon itself fell on a Friday, which meant he was able to attend his potions test that morning, but he lost the whole weekend to sleep. When he really would have preferred to revise. More than that, the moon had thrown his magic off completely. He thought it was happening less in his second year, but as their exams got closer, whether it was nerves or the lengthening days, Remus found his magic growing stronger, wilder, and harder to control. The slightest wand movement caused the most fantastic results, and sometimes he'd barely finish speaking an incantation before light was bursting from its tip, making his fingers tingle with shock. James had taken to saying, "Calm down, Moony," at least 3 or 4 times a day, as Remus attempted to practice various basic transfiguration spells and charms which inevitably went too far. He'd thought that just doing simple incantations might help him gain some control, but this was apparently not the case. As he smashed the dorm room window on a third time, attempting to levitate his gobstone set, "Reparo," Sirius muttered, glancing over the top of his astronomy vision. The window fixed itself at once. Remus sighed. "You really need to relax, mate." James grinned. "Why don't we have any practical exams?" "We don't have any practical exams until next week anyway." "I'm so behind, though," Remus grumbled, collecting up his gobstones and putting them back in their box. If you're behind, then what am I?" Peter wailed from the floor, where he had 5 texts spread out in front of him, all different subjects. "I know I'm going to fail Transfiguration. My rabbit hasn't changed at all this year, and I know she's going to make us do something really hard." "At least you're good at potions," Remus shot back. "And herbology. I can't remember which leaves mean what." "You beat me on our last herbology quiz," James reminded him. "And you've got us all by the bollocks when it comes to history of magic. I've been copying your homework all year." "But you're the best at transfigure," Remus started, but was interrupted by a loud thump as Sirius threw his astronomy book to the floor. "Will you all shut up? I'm trying to revise," he yelled, standing up, like a bunch of old women nattering. "I'm going to the library." He pulled his satchel over his shoulder and stormed out of the room. They sat in silence for a little while, Peter gnawing his lip, looked on the verge of tears. James sighed. "Ignore him, he's just in a mood because he has to go home soon. Not that I blame him," he added quickly. "His parents like that and all." "Suppose," Remus shrugged, though he didn't think it was a good enough excuse, really. It wasn't as if he, Remus, was much looking forward to the summer holidays either. Alright, fine. He didn't have to marry his cousin or attend weird stuffy banquets, but nor did Sirius have to be locked up in his cell once a month, or hide from much older, rougher boys, whose greatest delight was shoving your head in the bogs. He's not staying with you again, then, James? Peter asked nervously, probably quite looking forward to a Sirius-free summer, as it meant he would have James all to himself. Nah, James replied, sounding much less cheerful at the prospect. He's got an open invite, obviously. You all have. He eyed Remus, but we don't reckon it'll happen after the fiasco at Christmas. He thinks he'll be locked up completely until the betrothal ceremony. Remus felt a pang of guilt in his chest. He still hadn't come up with a workable solution to that, and between revision and the full moon, he hadn't even thought about it properly in 2 weeks. Judging by Narcissa's behavior in the halls, vexing anyone who so much as looked at her sideways, she had not fared much better. Well, if he keeps acting the way he does, he'll lose more than his hair next time, Peter said primly, sorting through his notes. What do you mean? James frowned, saying it's all his fault? No. Peter looked alarmed as James changed his tone. No, I just mean, well, you know the other day he packed all those Gryffindor house finders in his trunk. He wants to put them up in his bedroom to annoy his parents. Stuff like that is exactly what gets him into trouble. Nothing wrong with a bit of house pride, James said. James sniffed defensively, though he shot a nervous glance at Sirius's trunk. Remus didn't get involved. Personally, he agreed with Peter and Narcissa. Sirius was his own worst enemy a lot of the time. For someone so intelligent and magically gifted, he completely lacked subtlety, or even forethought. If he didn't have to mouth off at every opportunity, then maybe he wouldn't have found himself engaged at the age of 13. Remus knew better than anyone the importance of keeping a low profile, especially when you were different from everyone around you. James, who was more like Sirius than Peter or Remus, wholeheartedly disagreed. In his mind, the most important thing was to always fight back. But if everything was a battle, then inevitably someone had to lose. And until he was of age, he was going to be serious. That was going to be serious every time. Excellent, Mr. Potter, McGonagall gushed uncharacteristically, as James transformed his rabbit into a perfect pair of fine red velvet slippers with a fur trim. Remus took a deep breath, steadying himself on his own attempt. It was a week and a half since the full moon, and he was finally back in control, though his nerves still got the better of him sometimes. He watched Sirius lazily wave his wand over his own rabbits, and they too transfigured into a lovely pair of black wool booties. Peter's slippers still had ears and a tail, even after 3 attempts, and left droppings on the desk. When Remus took his turn, he closed his eyes first, feeling lightheaded, before finally uttering the incantation. The slippers were not as neat as James's or Sirius's, but they were wearable, and at least no longer had any leporine features, even if they were still a dull brown color. At least he knew he had done his very best on the theory paper. In fact, on all his theory papers, he was satisfied that he'd remembered everything he needed to remember when it came to his best subjects, and that he hadn't done too hideously in potions, herbology, or astronomy. At the end of the Transfiguration exam, McGonagall returned all of the rabbits to their original state and sent them hopping back into their hutch at the back of the room, ready for the next exam. She then began to hand out sheets of parchment that looked like blank timetables. You will be aware, she said very formally, that in your 3rd year you may choose a minimum of 2 additional subjects to take up to ordinary wizarding level. Here are your application sheets. If you will please think very carefully, reviewing each subject's merit, then complete the form and return it to my office no later than the last day of term. The class began to murmur excitedly, and Remus looked down at his form and the subjects listed there with great trepidation. As they all filed out of the room, Peter immediately began to badger James to find out which subjects he would be taking, so he could select the exact same ones. Local studies, Sirius said as they headed out into the summer sunshine. Definitely gonna take Muggle studies. Remus rolled his eyes. There's no surprise there. If any subject was going to win the general disapproval of the Black family, then there it was. Do you think Evans will take it? James scratched his chin. Sirius grinned. Doubt it, mate. She's Muggle-born. You can impress her with your knowledge, though. Yeah, maybe. James looked down thoughtfully. Are you going to take that then, James? Peter asked anxiously. Do you think it'll be difficult? I suppose we could just ask Remus for help. Are you taking it, Mooney? Nah. Remus shook his head. What's the point? You lot do it then, though, so then maybe you can stop asking me stuff. He secretly wished that there was a wizarding studies subject he could take so he didn't have to feel quite so out of his depth all the time. But he supposed that was the arrogance of wizards. Divination? That's like fortune telling, right? James sat down on the grass, throwing off his robes. Sirius followed suit, rolling up his shirt sleeves. I think so. Crystal balls and tea leaves. Sounds like a right toss. Let's do that. All three of them scribbled onto their papers. Remus did not. He didn't like the idea of knowing the future. Whatever he had coming to him, he was sure it couldn't be good. He tapped his temple with his wonderfully clean whisper. Letica Magna. Beginning to read through his options. Arithmetic? Lord? Is that like arithmetic? Numbers? Anyway, Sirius replied, it's supposed to be really difficult. Care of magical creatures. Don't know about that. James snorted. Have you seen the teacher? He's got more scars than Mooney. Oi! Remus kicked his ankle. Care of magical creatures had actually sounded quite interesting to him. After all, he sort of was a magical creature himself. I think I'll do arithmetic, if you are. Sirius said, still reading his paper. Will it really be difficult? Peter worried. We'll help you, Pete. Don't worry. James smoothed. Anyway, there are better things about third year than extra homework. Hogsmeade! You go to Honeydukes 3 times a week, Remus replied, mulling over the possibilities of ancient rooms. Yeah, but Sonkos. Remus grinned at him. He was actually pretty excited about the Hogsmeade trips. He'd never been to any of the protected wizarding areas other than Hogwarts. He was really sick of hearing about how great Diagon Alley was. He sighed and laid back, looking up at the clouds. He would think about his third-year subjects later. There was no hurry. For now, he wanted to enjoy the end of exams and revel in the thought that they still had a full month before school ended. Oi, Evans! James sat up suddenly. Remus sighed inwardly. James had been acting more and more of an idiot where Lily was concerned. Ever since the midnight feast. I'm not a dog, Potter. Her voice echoed across the grounds. Don't yell at me like one. Hey, Sirius. Mary's voice now. Remus sat up, blinking. Marlene gave a shy wave, which he returned. All right, MacDonald. Sirius nodded, casually sweeping her hair behind one ear. He'd started doing that whenever there were girls around. Remus hated it. All 3 girls had ice cream, which looked like an excellent idea considering the unseasonal warm weather. Lily had even charmed a Chinese fan to follow her around, creating a cool breeze wherever the three girls went. It was a lake then. James winked at her rudely. Marlene turned a beetroot red and dissolved into giggles, but Lily remained calm, arching one red eyebrow. You do look like you need cooling off. Argumente. With that, she aimed her wand at the marauders and sprayed them all with icy cold water. Remus stepped out of the way, but she wasn't trying to get him anyway. James and Sirius got the worst and shouted in dismay as their hair and shirts were drenched. Mary, Marlene, and Lily cackled with glee. What do you do that for? Sirius growled, pushing his dripping hair apart to glare at them, looking like a drowned rat. Thought you liked practical jokes. Lily winked at him before turning away and walking towards the lake. A complete nightmare, that one. Sirius groaned, trying a hot air charm on his hair. That's my future wife you're talking about, James replied dreamily, watching her go. His glasses had steamed up comically. Stop being so dramatic. You'll dry out in half an hour in this heat. Where do you think they got the ice cream? Peter asked distantly. Amos smiled, lying back again. Never mind going home or betrothals or new subjects. For now, everything was just as it should be. And that was the end of chapter 37. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. It was a little funny towards the end with the human practical joke thing. And I hope you guys are doing well. Again, sorry for not posting for a week. That is completely my fault. And yeah, I love you guys. Remember to take care of yourselves. Eat 3 meals a day. Excessive ounces of water a day. Like 2 bottles of water. It usually adds up somehow.